review for The House That Jack Built, starring Matt Dillon, directed by Lars von Trier, 2018. So if you're not familiar with Lars von Trier, I've watched I think like half of Melancholia and maybe one of his other movies. Very kind of strange, artsy filmmaker. I think kind of like a shock jock kind of too, in my opinion. I think he likes to shock people. But anyways, I've tried to watch a few of his other movies and I just couldn't get into them. Um but I actually got into this. I thought it was an okay movie. It's definitely too long. There's some stuff, and this is just gonna be full spoilers, because it's hard to talk about this movie without them. But there's some stuff where they cut to, images of animals, and I kind of get what they're saying there. But then there's one part where they cut to grapes, and they go through these different ways to make wine. And one of them, you freeze the grapes outside, and then you let them stay for 48 hours. Then you go and grab them and smash them. And the other way you do this, the other way you do this, and I'm sure there's some meaning in there about the movie, but I guess I just missed it. But so he's a serial killer, and it goes through like five different incidents or something. And like five different incidents where he kills either one person or multiple people. So it says, in 5 episodes, failed architect and vicious sociopath Jack recounts his elaborating orchestrated murders, each, as he views them, a towering work of art that defines his life work as a serial killer in the Pacific Northwest. And that pretty much sums it up. But yeah, this movie it's like a dark comedy in some ways, comedic. Like in one of the killings, which I thought was probably the most entertaining one, was him. He goes to this lady's house, and this lady was in Men in Black. I remember her. She was the wife in Men in Black, and she's in a bunch of stuff. But anyways, he goes to her house, and he tries to get inside, but she won't let him in. He says he's a cop, and then she doesn't believe him. She's like, "Well, show me your badge." And he's like, "Oh," he says, "Oh, my badge is being done at the silversmith, and they're adding commendations to it, and I don't have it." And then she's like, "Okay, well, you can't come in." And then he's like, and then he sees that her husband was like a railroad worker. It says like over 25 years of work or something on this picture of him, who he died like 6 months before. And he says to her, "I can double your pension." It's like, and she believes him, which is ridiculous. And then he's like, "Okay, I'm not a cop. I'm actually I'm an insurance agent, and we're told to do the cop thing, for some reason, and they're keeping records of it." And she believes him about this. So I was like, okay. Yeah, but then she lets him in, and he kills her. Big shocker. I mean, he kind of looks like a serial killer. Like, don't let this guy in your house. But anyways, he does that, and then he has like OCD too. So he tries to clean up the scene, and he's thinking about everywhere he touched, and he's cleaning everything. And then he goes to, and then it's like nighttime now, and he has the body, and he wraps it up, and he puts it in his car. And then he's just kind of sitting in his car, and he's thinking, and he goes back in the house, cleans up some more, and then he comes back out, and there's a cop, and the cop comes up to him. Oh yeah, but before the cop comes up to him, he goes in the back of his van, and he takes her body and puts it in the woods, like right close by. And then the cop talks to him, and it's just such a weird scene, oddly comedic too. Some of the things he says to him. I don't even know if the cop takes his name, so like terrible cop work, Like, this is very suspicious. And then he says to the cop, "Oh, she went inside to go get me something, but she never came back out." So then he goes inside, and there was like a scuffle, and he's like, "Okay, this looks like a crime scene." Um, Matt Dillon's touching a bunch of stuff, and he's like, "You need to get out of here." So then he goes outside, and then he just takes the lady's body out of the woods, ties it up to the back of his van, and drives off. So he's dragging this lady's body throughout the streets to back to his not his house, but he owns like a industrial freezer, and it's dragging her there, and then there's this huge line of blood all the way from there to there, and then out of nowhere it rains. And then he says he never believed in God, but I think he says at that moment he may have started to. So it's like this, very twisted. I mean, it's like God is covering up for his murders. You're like, okay, yeah, right. Um, but yeah, this, stroke of luck, the water gets rid of all the blood, so they can't track it to him. Yeah, that one just stands out to me as like just so crazy and weird, because the lady's face is almost like torn off because she's being dragged, and it's very strange. Um, and then there's another murder with Uma Thurman, that she's on the side of the road. This is the first one, I think. And then she's like, "Oh, I can't change the tire, and this thing's broken. The jack's broken. Can you take me into town so I can get it fixed?" And he doesn't really want to do it. And she kind of, she's like, "Well, do you know anyone that can fix it?" And he's like, "I know a blacksmith, and he can fix it." So then he takes her there, and he fixes it, but they go back, and he's putting the tire on, and then it breaks right away again. So then he's pissed off, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have time for this," and then he gets back in his car, but she begs him to take her back to the blacksmith. And throughout this whole time, she's joking that he's a serial killer, and she says, "Oh, I shouldn't have gotten in the car with you." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you look like a serial killer." And and then on the way back to the blacksmith, she says, "Oh, you couldn't have been a serial killer. You're too weak. You're too pathetic." And she starts insulting him, and it's like, that's not smart. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere with this guy who drives a van, and she says that's why you look like a serial killer too, because you drive a van. And then she just starts insulting him, and then he picks up the broken um piece, and he just beats her with it, smacks her in the face, and kills her. And I don't know, that one's oddly comedic too. So there's definitely very dark humor going on here. Um, it kind of gets into that he has no conscience until the later in the movie, which I think is his conscience, because throughout the whole movie he's talking to Bruno Gantz, who's a great actor. He's in tons of stuff. Unfortunately, I think he died, maybe. Yeah, 2019, died right after this. So a great Swiss actor, but has a great voice, and he's talking to him throughout the movie, and he's kind of asking Matt Dillon questions and prodding at him, and a little bit of a pushback. Um, so, but later in the movie, becomes much more important. So, and then there's some other murders. He's taking all of the bodies to the freezer, and then he kind of poses them in odd ways, because he likes to take photos of them too, and he poses them in odd ways. He even takes photos of one of the murders at the crime scene at the lady's apartment, and he isn't happy with the photos. So then he goes back to the apartment, but on the way there, he kills a hitchhiker and takes her to the apartment with him, and they pose these pictures and they take photos of them. or he takes photos of them. Very, very strange. There's another murder, well, where he, guess he's dating this woman and she has two children, and they go hunting, and guess who he hunts? So he kills them, and and it's, I don't know, some of the things he says was just like so weird. He's like, the little kid's like, "Are we gonna hunt deer?" And he's like, "No, I don't hunt it. I would never hurt an animal again." He's like, "It's disgusting." And then they're like, and then they're shooting at these cardboard cutouts of animals, and then he starts to kill them. Um, so he won't kill a deer, but he will kill like two young children and a mother, and that scene's messed up too. Um, but yeah, I think there's five incidents. It's called incidents, each incident, and then between them, it's kind of broken up by some footage of, yeah, like wineries, and he talks about that, and I'm sure there's a meaning to some of this stuff, but I'm just not picking up on it. But this is kind of, Dante's Inferno is definitely a big influence on this movie. I read Dante's Inferno a long time ago. I don't really remember that much of it, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, um, it's shot really well. I mean, Lars von Trier movies usually are pretty good looking, so give the guy credit for that. Trying to find who the cinematographer is. Okay, Manuel Alberto Claro. Yeah, Claro. So he shot Melancholia, the house that Jack built. Yeah, so he has shot some Lars von Trier movies before. Yeah, it's very well shot. I think Matt Dillon's a pretty good actor. Whenever he shows up in something, I'm interested. I think he's an interesting actor, and I think he's well cast in this. I mean, with those glasses, he does kind of look like a serial killer. Um, it's just a really twisted movie because, like, in one of the killings is with like a girlfriend, I guess, and he even says like, "Oh, I kind of felt bad about this one because I liked her." Didn't seem like you liked her that much because he actually, man, he like cuts her boobs off, and she dies, and then he freezes her, and he actually like makes a wallet, I think, out of one of her boobs. So a little bit of like Leatherface going on here, or Ed Gaines, or whatever his name was. Um and then in the final one, he gets all these people and puts them on this pipe, and their heads are all going to be lined up perfectly. They're like stuck to the pipe with the pipe here, and then he's going to go shoot a Full Metal Jacket bullet through all their heads. And this is the final. This is the end of the movie. One of the guys is said, "I was in the military. That's not a Full Metal Jacket." So he gets pissed. He goes back to the gun salesman. He says, "Give me a Full Metal Jacket because that's what I paid for. That's what this packaging says." He's like, "I need a receipt." And he's like, "I come in here like every other weekend. Like what the heck?" And he won't do it. And that guy, that's Jeremy Davies, a good actor himself too. Saving Private Ryan, he's a real prick in that. Um, the Black Phone, that's right. He's like the alcoholic father in that movie, but he's an interesting actor that I've always liked. Maybe not in Saving Private Ryan because his character is just so gross, but anyways, he won't do that. He won't sell it to him because he doesn't have his ID with him. So then he leaves. He goes. I think he goes to the blacksmith's house, who's kind of his friend, because he knows he has tons of bullets and guns. He talks to him. Then the blacksmith says, "The police were here yesterday, and they're asking all these questions about you, and you are very suspicious about this and that. So I'm gonna hold you here till the police come." And then the guy's really dumb because he tricks him to get close to him, and then he has a knife and he kills him. And I was just like, is this guy really gonna like get close to this guy? And I mean, he has the knife like down here. It's like I don't know. He can almost see it. I thought that was kind of strange, but this whole movie's just strange. You're almost like, is this even really occurring? But I don't know. It's a little bit like American Psycho. I felt that, and I just rewatched that actually. Um, but yeah, a little bit like American Psycho. I think that is pretty close to it until the end and the Dante's Inferno stuff. So in the freezer, there's a room in the back that he can never open. And as far as I can tell, this represents his conscience. His conscience has been locked away in some subconscious area of his brain, and he can't get to it. So he finally opens the door so that he can shoot those people because he has to move back so the gun can focus the lens. And then you see Bruno Gantz, who's been talking to him throughout some of the segments. And then he starts talking to him, and yeah, basically he's kind of like his conscience, like a little bit of pushback. Before the cops can get in, they're melting down the door. The house that Jack builds is actually all of the corpses, and then he puts them up and makes a roof and a doorway out of all of their corpses. So very messed up movie. Very messed up movie. Um, but I found most of it pretty entertaining. I just think it's too long. But yeah, so that's the house that he builds because he's also been trying to build this other house, but then he bulldozes it and he's angry because it wasn't perfect, and then yeah, he builds the house out of literally cadavers, frozen cadavers of people inside of this industrial freezer. And then after he does that, there's like a hole that leads to like the sewer, and he goes down there with Bruno Gantz, and this is when the movie really gets weird and crazy. And he's his guide to hell, and that's what occurs. So I found this comment on Reddit by Nihilist Bowling. I'll give him credit. So this is what he says, and this makes kind of sense to me. I think it's up to interpretation, but my take on the film is this: Verge, who's Bruno Gantz. Verge is the same as Virgil, the poet that escorts Dante. So yeah, and then he's Dante, the star, the poet that escorts Dante through hell, and Dante's Divine Comedy. In the house that Jack built, Verge has this as a full-time job, it seems. Thus, he moves on a spiritual level, bringing Jack from the living world to his judgment. This explains why he starts off by saying he has heard it all before. Jack is not the first murderer he has encountered. The house. The house is the embodiment of Jack's life's work. Jack is an artist working his way up to his masterpiece. If the house is real or not is unclear. I think it goes like this. An artist has no masterpiece. An artist has a lifetime creation that collectively is the masterpiece. As such, the house is not real, but consists of all of Jack's murders. Right, and then he builds the house at the end with the murders. So hell is real to Jack. I see the ending as Jack's very real death. When the cops shoot him, he travels with Verge through hell. In the Divine Comedy, they cross the river Styx, which is depicted with the boat picture you refer to. Dante describes the river as filled with sinners. Also in hell, Jack gets to see the only thing he never really liked, the sound of harvesting. The only thing he ever really liked, the sound of harvesting. He sees the field of Elysium, realizing he will never experience that again. Tier 1 has, I believe, a great deal of self-hate. So in my opinion, Trier has, I believe, a great deal of self-hate. So in my opinion, this is Trier looking at ordinary society, knowing he has no place there. It's interesting. So I think that's a pretty good summary of the very end of the movie. Um, they get to a bridge. It's burned down. You can't cross. He says, where does that lead to?" He says, "That leads up out of here. So that's the way out of hell." He can't do it. So he says to Verge that he's gonna try and climb. It's like this giant circle with all these rocks, and below is a pit of lava. So he's gonna try and climb his way to the bridge, which I think kind of represents his narcissism, that he thinks he can do anything. And he says, and Verge says, "Okay, you can do that, but no one's made it." So then he does it, and of course he slips and he falls into the fire, into hell. So, but yeah. And then there's other things like Verge says to him, "What do you want to know?" And he says, "I want to know everything." I think that kind of, you know, shows his narcissism too. So, but yeah, the house that Jack built, interesting, dark movie with some odd comedic moments. I think it's too long, but I'm sure Lars von Trier every second he thinks is amazing. So, but I will give him this. It's the first movie of his that I actually finished, and I actually enjoyed it. So, the house that Jack built, 2018. Check it out. If you've seen other Lars von Trier movies and you're not into his stuff, I'd maybe check this one out, because this is, for me, the ones that I've seen, this is like his most, um, not normal, but it's structured in a way like many other films are structured. Like, it's just, and basically into 5 parts and then the epilogue. So it's like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. Says it on screen, epilogue, and that's his descent into hell. So, but yeah, that's about it. If you could do me a favor and smash that like button, that'd be great. And like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.